Recording in progress. You have plans this weekend? You have plans for the weekend?
Doing an open house.
Oh, that's right, yeah, you're talking about it.
Yeah. Who's the host, right?
What's that?
Yeah.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, what's that?
Good, how's it going? So it's just me and,
Well, Bobby's here.
Bobby's here.
Wow. Some other people pop in. I know Tracy's gonna pop on. Just following this one. Oh, did you turn this on?
Yes. Yep, Tracy's on, Samantha.
Cool. Yeah, 1 minute.
Oh, Sean's on.
Alexina?
Yep.
Nice. What are you doing? What you doing? How you do?
Making calls, man, just making calls.
There you go. I like it. Like it. All right, let's play the video and we'll get this party started.
Hi, this is Brian. Welcome back to Philosopher's Notes TV. Today, another great book, missing the dust cover, but Eat That Frog. Eat That Frog by Brian Tracy. Green cover must represent the frog, is my guess. Subtitle, 21 Great Ways to Stop Procrastinating and Get More Done in Less Time. If you haven't studied much Brian Tracy yet, you're in for a treat with this book. His books are packed with wisdom, great journal exercises, and questions to help you get more clarity on your big visions and dreams and practical ideas on how you can implement them. I joke in the note that the introduction to this book had enough big ideas for me to write this entire 6-page philosopher's note. I didn't do that, but I could have. He's just packed with quotable goodness. Let's take a look at 5 of my favorite ideas. We'll start with frogs. Eat a frog? What are you talking about, Brian? Tracy? Yeah, we want to eat a frog. So there's a story that if you need to eat a frog first thing in the morning, that's kind of a good thing because that's the worst thing you're likely to do all day long, and the rest of the day is going to be pretty easy. So the idea is identify the most important thing you can do in a given day and do that first. And the rest of your day is easy. Eat that frog. So the question for you is, what's the most important thing you can do today, if it's the end of the day, that you can do tomorrow? And you want to start your day with that question every day. What's the number one thing that if you did it, completed it, would have the most positive impact in your life, will create the most value in your life? What is that? Brian says, get in the habit, build the discipline. You're not going to be perfect at it in the beginning, but get in the habit of eating that frog first thing every morning, and you will create incredible momentum in your life. And anything other than that thing is a distraction. We've talked about that before. Rory Vaden, procrastinate on purpose. He says throughout the day, ask yourself, what's the number one most significant thing I can do right now? Do that. Anything else is a distraction. Right now, what's the number one most important thing you could be doing right now or when you finish this video? Do that. Anything else is a distraction. It's a huge idea. Eat that frog over and over and over again. So there you go. Frogs. Yummy. Second idea here, thank you, frogs, is to identify your goals. If you want to have more momentum in your life and reduce procrastination, in our last session on the procrastination equation, Piers Steele, one of the leading scientific researchers on procrastination, told us that the number one way to deal with your procrastination is to set goals. We had that equation, right? Expectancy times value over impulsiveness times delay. You got to get your expectancy up. You need to have a clear sense of a goal that you're excited about. And Brian's really good at helping us identify what goals matter to us. And then he has one of his great journal questions. This one helps us identify the number one goal that's most important to us. But it goes like this. Imagine, take out a blank sheet of paper, right? Number it 1, 2, all the way to 10. And I've done so many journal exercises based on Brian's stuff. Just awesome. But I want you to think about your top 10 goals of what you want to achieve in the next year. So say the next 12 or 16 months. When I did this exercise, it's now recording this in August 2015. So I was thinking about what I wanted to achieve by the end of 2016. What do I want to achieve? What 10 things? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. What are they? Think about it. Take the time. Press pause right now if you want to and actually do that exercise or do it afterwards, but do it. Prime your brain to think about what are the 10 things that I'd like to get done by the end of next year. It's a huge way to build your motivation and to reduce procrastination. So when you get that list of the top 10 things that you want to achieve that would fire you up, identify the number one goal. What's the number one goal that if you achieved that goal would have the most positive impact in your life? What is it? Over the next year, if you did one thing, if you achieved one thing, what would it be? For me, it's a certain number of notes. And the specific number is getting to 500 notes. I have 285 or something like that done now. So setting the goal of 500 notes by the end of 2016. Today, end of 2016. If I get to that point, that's amazing. That drives a ton of things for me. I continue to create these videos. I do the micro classes. I do a bunch of stuff. I march toward my goal of getting to 1,000 Philosopher's Notes in the next 5.5 years. It's exciting for me. It really fires me up. And it also gets me really clear on what my next frog is. I know what I need to do. I need to read. I need to create PDFs. I need to create my MP3s, these episodes, and the micro classes. Repeat. Do it again. My clarity comes because I know what my number one goal is. So the question for you is, what's your number one goal? What's the thing that's going to drive the most value in your life? Know what that is, and that's going to help you identify what frogs support you in the process of getting there. Third big idea, 80-20 principle, is tied to what we just did. But let's just look at this list again. Let's say that you, at the beginning of the day, you write down 10 things that you could do, right? 10 different things you can do. The 80-20 principle, for those of you who aren't familiar with it, and those of you who are, a little recap. 80-20 principle, Vilfredo Pareto. It's also called the Pareto principle. 1895, Vilfredo discovered that 20% of the individuals in his, I think it was either in Italy or in England when he did this research, owned 80% of the land. And he did the math and he saw that this accounted for a ton of different distributions. 20% of his pea pods accounted for 80% of the yield. 20% of what you do in a given day accounts for 80% of the value created in your life. The 80-20 principle would hold. There's other crazy things like you walk on 20% of your carpet 80% of the time. 20% of criminals commit 80% of crime. 20% of beer drinkers drink 80% of beer. There's a ton of funny, whatever, little connections to 80-20 principle. But if you did this list with your goals, you wrote down 10 of them, 2 of them would probably account for 80% of possible benefits. And same with tasks. If you wrote down 10 things you could do today, 2 of them would probably account for 80% of your benefit. In the note, I talk about the fact that you can drill down on that and identify your number one thing, which is what we talked about in The One Thing by Gary Keller. He talked about the exact same thing, Pareto principle. He said you need to go extreme. You need to know your 80-20 principle, that you keep on doing it and you get to the number one thing that you need to do right now. Guess what that is? That's your frog. We want to continue to whittle away at the trivial many, Vilfredo Pareto said, to find the significant few, and then to find the most important one thing that needs to get done. That's our third big idea. The fourth one is oil barrels. So Brian tells a story about once he was traveling across the Sahara Desert. Here he is. And he says there was 500 miles of desert in front of him. All looked exactly the same. He said it was like a yellow, flat, huge parking lot with nothing. No blade of grass, not even a fly. No food, no water, nothing for 500 miles. And he crossed this, right? He said, well, how'd they do it? This was in Algeria. He said what they did was they created these, the French created these oil barrels, 50 gallon or something like that, oil barrels, black oil barrels, here, and then every 5 kilometers, they'd put these huge barrels. And so what would happen is you can go on this desolate land and you'd walk, and at any given point, you'd be able to see 2 barrels. The one that you came from and this one, 5 kilometers away, which happened to be basically horizon to a horizon. So once you got to this barrel, you'd then see another barrel way over here, right? And you'd keep on doing that 500 miles at a time. And all he had to do was get to the next barrel. Get to the next barrel. This is what we talk about all the time with dominoes. In the last episode, we talked about it as island hopping. The Polynesian explorers colonized all the different islands in the Pacific by doing the exact same thing. They were on an island. They didn't have oil barrels, but there they are on an island, and they saw another island way out here. They got to that one, then they saw another island. What we want to do is break our huge goals down into little increments, and then we want to hit it. Then we got to know that the next goal is going to open up. You can hit that. The next goal is going to open up. Incremental improvement is where it's at. We don't want to overwhelm ourselves thinking we need to get to the end of the desert in one big step. It's not going to happen. If you think that, you're going to procrastinate. But if you can break it down into tiny little steps and micro goals, you can do amazing things. So think oil barrels, island hopping, dominoes, etc. Fifth big idea is a practical time management idea that Brian comes back to in his books again and again and again. Single handling stuff. And we talked about this in the last episode on procrastination as well. Piers Steele tells us that we waste a ton of time distracting ourselves. If you remember in that episode, we talked about impulsiveness, that impulsiveness is the greatest threat to our productivity, being distracted. And he said if you simply just take off your email notifications, you'd increase your productivity by 10%, which would boost your productivity in the course of a year. You'd basically add an additional month of productivity. That's crazy. 10% gain in productivity equals a month of more productive time over the course of a year. What? Crazy, right? So we want to single handle things. When you start something, finish it. You start something, you finish it. You start something, you finish it. You don't start something, check your email or your social feed, and then come back to it. That type of multitasking is a horrible waste of time. You're constantly getting your momentum back, figuring out where you left off, and it takes you way longer to do that than if you just single-handled it. Start, finish, start, finish. Get in the habit of finishing things. Nick Saban, the great football coach, collegiate football coach, that's his whole thing. Their process is they finish. They finish a tackle, they finish a workout regimen, they finish a practice, they finish a play in a game, they finish a game, they finish. And that leads to an extraordinary amount of success. So see if you have a habit of allowing yourself to be distracted and discipline yourself to single handle things. Start, finish, and notice your productivity go way up. As you do that, have your oil barrels, have your little incremental goals mapped out so you're not stressing yourself out and you're getting excited and focused. 80-20 it, know that a very small amount of your activities are leading to a huge amount of your results. Take the time to figure out what those things are and do them. Know what your number one goal is. This is a really cool exercise. I hope you do it. Top 10 goals for the next year. What are they? And what's your number one? Create a plan for that, start executing it. And Brian says, do something every day in pursuit of that goal. And you know that if you hit it, it's going to have a huge positive impact on the rest of your life. And that brings us back to the frogs, which is today, what's the number one most important thing you could do that would have the most positive benefit in your life? Do that before you do anything else. Don't hop online and distract yourself. Your day will be over and you won't have done that. You're more likely to procrastinate. Discipline yourself before you get involved in everything else to do the most important thing. If that's all you did, you didn't change anything else in your life, but you did the number one most important thing day in and day out, you tell me what your life would look like in a matter of months, let alone in years, let alone in decades. It's an exciting opportunity. Hope you enjoyed this quick look at a fun book, and I look forward to sharing more soon. Have another awesome day. See ya.
Nice. Has anybody read that book? That Frog. When I started on my book journey of all the books that I started reading and everything, it was one of the first books I ended up reading. Funny enough, it took me a really long time to read the book about procrastination, so I thought that was really funny, but was just kind of getting in the groove. The book itself is actually it's not really big. So if you listen to it, it's not going to be super long. And if you read it, it's really thin for the most part, based on, average books like 4 to 6 hours. If you listen to them, I think this is less.
Samantha has read it.
Who read it?
Samantha.
Samantha. Did you like it?
I
you read it?
love it. Actually, I love all his books, like Brian Tracy's book, because they are so practical. And this one, as you mentioned, is a small book, but has a lot of knowledge and practical things to do. And I love the way that he writes, makes you aware that things that we may know, but how to do it this time, and encourage you a lot. So I really enjoy it.
Absolutely. Well, what did Is that me?
It's you.
I know, but I'm giving feedback, so I don't know how it's working out there. Sean, did you read it?
I have not read it.
You have not. No, it's a really great book. I think all people should. There's a couple books that I think like all real estate agents should read. Eat That Frog is definitely one of them. And the other one that I'm going to see if we can do the next class on this book is Who Moved My Cheese? I think that's actually very, very apropos for what's going on in the real estate market now. What do you say?
Frog.
So you came in late, so
2 minutes.
and you missed what a frog was. So basically he explains that when they call it Eat That Frog, that if you had to do something, if you had to eat a frog, you eat the biggest and ugliest and nastiest frog first thing in the morning, because it would be the worst thing that you would do all day. And so you want to get that out of the way as quickly as possible so you could do everything else. That's the premise behind it.
Yeah.
So,
But French eating the frogs.
legs. Not, I don't know if they eat the whole thing, but Yakov's coming in with comedy today. I like it.
Even the legs.
I like it. So this spurred a lot of things for me when I was listening to him. I haven't read this. I usually listen to a lot of Brian's stuff, but this is the first time I've listened to this one. So when he talks about the goals and outlining the goals and multitasking and all these things. So like me personally, I write my goals down in the night and I write them down in the morning. And the reason I do that is because I've realized that if I can focus on what I want, like I'm going to have more of a chance of getting it. So I'm trying to see my goals, think about my goals, pay attention to my goals more than almost anything else, because that's going to get me to where I want to go. And so there's a someday goal, like your big goal, the big thing that you want that's out there. And then what I do is I try to dial it back. But the someday goal should be tied to like what they call your why. Like what gets you up in the morning, what gets you moving, what's important to you. Like I know when my kids were younger, like it was my kids, right? As my kids have gotten older and became teenagers and they don't like me and I don't like them, they've become less of the why. And I'm just kidding, sort of. But they have, so the why changes as you grow in life and in business. So identifying that I think is really important because like what motivates you every day, that's really, really important. And Brian Tracy has another book that's one of my favorite books of all time. It's called Goals. And it's a longer book, but he had a goal strategy that I thought was really powerful. And when he said it originally, I didn't really think too much of it until I actually tried to do it. And so I think it's either top 10 or top 20. Like write down your top 10 goals every day. And then tomorrow, write down your top 10 goals without looking at the day before. And I was like, ah, that'd be easy. I tried to do it and I was like, oh, wow. What happened was, and what this does is it actually shows up. What's most important to you shows up. Because if you can't remember what a goal that you wanted to set yesterday was, if you can't remember it today, how important is that goal? Right? So it really helped me prioritize what the goals were when it came to that. The multitasking thing, we are all victims of multitasking. And what multitasking is that it takes the one thing that you'd probably do really well. And if you try to do 5 or 10 things at the same time, it's just going to make you do everything less efficiently, less good, as you could be doing that one thing. When he was talking about the 80-20 rule, the energy dial came into mind with me when it comes to what are you doing throughout your entire day? And I like to separate my day in 8 hours, 8 hours, 8 hours. That's 24 hours in a day. And like, so for me, like the 8 hours of sleep, that's actually 6 for me. So I can take plus 2 hours and allocate them to other places like work or play. And play is important because you got to do something fun. You got to do something that you enjoy. You got to do something that's separate from other things in your life to kind of keep you going. So, but if you look at the 80-20 rule, like 20% of what you do every day, if you took that into the 24-hour period of time, you're looking at like 5 hours. So if you focus 5 hours out of your 24 hours during a day on the one thing that's going to help your business, I think your business would probably explode because most of us don't do that. Most of us don't take and spend that much time on our business, right? So that comes back to what's the one thing? What's the one thing that's going to, what's the frog? Like, what's your frog when it comes to real estate? So if you have an idea of what your frog is, I'll tell you what I think the frog should be. And it's probably not what like Tracy and Sean and some people on here that have been doing real estate for a while, it's probably not what they think. And a lot of people would say, oh, it's lead generation. Yes, but it's actually what Tracy and I are doing with our coach right now. So and it's hard because being a team leader and running an office, like my sphere of influence kind of took a back seat to Tracy's business, and we've been focused on Tracy's business, but now I'm going back to my real estate roots and trying to find all the people that I knew and sold houses to. And fortunately, there's a lot of them. Unfortunately, I have to go back through all of those people and try to find them now and reconnect with them. So the one thing for me is adding to your database. So the reason this is the one thing is that lead generation should be important. It is 100% important, but if you don't add to your database will naturally have attrition and naturally shrink. It will just start dissipating because you will lose connection with people. People will move, they won't tell you. People will pass away. Like I joke around, like your sister's cousin, uncle will cheat on his wife and now he's out of the database. Like different things will happen to where your database will naturally get smaller if you don't focus on growing it. So the number one thing for me is adding to your database. That's the frog. Because when I get to the office, I have a million things to do. And I multitask. It's like, I almost feel like I'm forced to. So I try to do things as best as I possibly can. But the one thing that I know that when I get on my coaching call with my coach and Tracy is they're going to be, how many people did Frank add to the database? And then I'll have that collective scream in my head that goes, ah. And then I have all the excuses of why I didn't do that. And now we can all probably, relate to that a little bit because there's always things that happen, they get in our way. But the frog is adding people to your database. Where's your database at today? Have you connected with all of them? And who can you put in there today? Does that resonate with anybody? Do you guys have people in your database? Yeah. You have people in your database? Yeah. What about you, Yakov? Do you have anybody in your database? Yeah, yeah. What about you, Mitra?
I have it on my phone.
You have it on your phone?
Yes.
So your database is Google?
No, it's not Google. I mean, I.
Contacts?
Contacts, clients, buyers, seller, prospect.
Okay.
Organize.
So how do you follow up with everybody?
As I mentioned before, if I feel comfortable with
Yep.
them, I follow up with them. If not, just every 4 or 5 months, I say happy Thanksgiving or happy New Year or has been like that.
So let me ask you this. Do you think that if you were more engaging with them and talk to them more, do you think that
I
you,
don't want them to block me.
well, see see, are you okay if we coach for a minute?
Sure.
Okay, so that's what we call a limiting belief.
Right.
Because you are creating a situation that may or may not be true based on your personal experience. So you're telling yourself a story that if you talk to somebody too much or say something that you think that they won't like, that they're gonna block you.
I should
Right.
not think that.
So one of these people, what could you say to them and how could you approach them to where they wouldn't block you? What would be the type of way that you could approach them?
Well, if they have a new baby, I asked about the new baby, if they have a dog, or if they bring another dog. So that's how I communicate with them.
Mhm.
And, are you happy with your condominiums that you
No, don't jump into the real estate thing. No, you're waiting for the real estate conversation. As long as they know you're in real estate, you don't have to go there, right? It'll come up in a conversation in time because they know you're a real estate agent. In the back of their mind, they probably know you're calling because you're a real estate agent. So you don't have to immediately go there. The key is that, so that was a good answer. What could you say to them if you called them that would make them block you?
To be too noisy, I guess.
Too nosy?
Yeah.
Like what?
Did you go shopping today? Did you buy anything today?
No, I don't think
Yeah.
so. I think maybe like if you called them and said, hey, I haven't spoken to you in like a year, but how's the condo? Did you know prices are really great right now? And if you put the house on the market, you probably get a lot of money, right? Like if you went like, do you want to buy or sell? Do you want to buy or sell? Do you want to buy or sell? I think that if you did that to your best friend, that they would probably be like, listen, Mitra, listen, we're not talking anymore, right? So what I'm trying to get to here is caring. If you call people and you are genuine and you are authentic and you care about them and you just ask them about how they're doing, how's their family, how's their life, how are you doing? Like, it's been a while, I haven't talked to you in a long time, blah, 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 right?
Yeah, depends what-
Why would anybody block you? And this is the thing, if you come from a place of caring and they block you, they weren't gonna use you anyway.
Thank God nobody has done that to me.
And you know what, and you know what I would want you to do is to talk to as many people in your database as you possibly can to see who you can get to block you. Because they're not gonna use you anyway if they block you, if you call to check on them to see how they're doing. So if that happens, that means you're talking to enough people because you are reaching out more than you have in the past. Who's gonna say something, Sean? I heard
No.
something. No. Sean's like, no, I'm not trying. Does that?
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So, and so what I would also recommend is take everybody out of your phone and put them in a database to where you can create like a follow-up plan. So you don't have to worry about who am I gonna reach out today? You can kind of set up something for that. If you need help with that, we can help you.
Sure.
Because that is like,
I know how to do it.
okay. Because the thing is that what you want to do is you want to save like these 8 hours here that we have, you want to try and purposefully use them as efficiently as possible. And so instead of getting up and going in your database and finding out who am I going to talk to today, you can have it set up to where you open it up and it tells you who to talk to today. You have to send this letter out.
How to do someone to do it.
I know. I know how to do it.
Does that make sense, Kelly?
Yeah. It's the exact same advice from Dr. Townsend that I was kind of doing before all this.
Okay.
I think that it's, the hardest part is that after college, it's really harder to meet new people because you get into your routine.
Yeah.
Because you have to be intentional on going to a new class at the gym.
Oh, yeah.
Going to a new thing, you go to church, go to a new service or try a different place, do different things.
Yeah, and I realize as I'm getting older, I try to avoid people. Like if you're not a Boston Terrier or my wife, like I don't usually talk to you when I leave the office, so. But it's just like, you're right, you get into a routine of the things you do every day. And to grow your database and grow your sphere of influence, you kind of got to get out of that routine to, connect with people. And it can be uncomfortable.
I've been like trying to reconnect with people and it's easier with like the probably 100 people I'm close to.
Mhm.
And but then I find like, I don't know what I'd say to that person. Like the last time I talked to them was kind of awkward.
Yeah.
Some people.
So this is what I would recommend, because we're all gonna run into that person. You're like, man, I haven't spoken to that person in a while. Like, what would I say? So my hack for that is you go online and find them online somewhere. Find out on social media. Find out what they're doing on social media. Find out if something's changed. Find out if they're doing something you'd be interested in. And now you have a point of reference to call them and say, hey, I just saw that you went to Cabo a couple of months ago. I've been dying to go to Cabo. Like, what's that like? Like, just find something that is a commonality that connects with somebody. Like when Tracy and I go on listing appointments, we walk through the house, and as we're walking through the house, so it's kind of like tag teaming. I used to do this by myself, and it's way easier with Tracy because Tracy is really good at taking notes and asking questions about the house. And then what we also do is that as she's doing that, she's looking around at like, what will connect us to this person? Like if there's somebody that has graduated from USC and their kids are in their cap and gown with a picture, like Tracy's son graduated from USC, immediate connection, right? And so you're always, whenever you meet somebody new, like when I meet somebody brand new, I start asking them questions because my number one thing is that I want to create a connection with that person. Once I create a connection with that person, it just kind of snowballs the relationship. So you always should be doing that. But social media is great because like right now, like Super Bowl's coming up. You can find out if some of your people in your database are football fans, right? Do they love the 49ers? Do they hate the Chiefs? Do they love Taylor Swift? Like what do they like? And you just create that connection. I just found out through looking through my memories and stories that 4 years ago, the 49ers and the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl. I didn't even remember that. We also ate a whole bunch of bad food on that day, Tracy. It was a little crazy on how much bad food we ate. But what do you guys say? What do you guys on Zoom think? Any thoughts? Sean, what do you think? I'll just use you.
No, I mean, I 100% agree with everything you just said. And I think, I didn't hear you mention Ford. I think Ford is always a great acronym to remember. And 50% of the conversation should be Ford. If it does go to real estate, try to delay, don't always just go to the real estate, delay that. Yeah. And save it for the end. And don't forget to ask for a referral.
Yeah.
I use the word introduce. I don't use the word referral. Who can you introduce me to? Because if they haven't ever used you, they're not likely to refer you, but introducing you is a whole different thing.
Absolutely. For everybody that doesn't know, FORD is it's an acronym for Family, Occupation, Recreation, and Dreams. And so you just create the conversation around that. And I always tell people, like, notice there's nothing about real estate in that acronym. Because the key is they, as long as they know you were in real estate, and I think this is really important right now because the statistic that came out recently was 49% of all agents have done 1 or 0 transactions. So there's a lot of agents that are going to be getting out of the business. So it's almost like if you don't talk to your people enough, they're not going to know if you're in the business or not because people are coming and going very quickly. So you have to have this conversation. And if you connect with them, they're going to ask you about real estate. There's so much stuff going on about real estate, interest rates, commissions, lawsuits, like there's all these crazy things going on. They'll ask you if you can talk to them long enough. It's but Ford is great. And it's only Ford because, it spells something. I mean, it could be Dorf, it could be something else. But when I talk to people, I don't even really get to the recreation and dreams part sometimes. Like, you don't have to do all of them. You can just do some of them. And it works really good if you haven't talked to somebody in a really, really long time, but that's super uncomfortable for people, and I get that. But that we come back to the comfort zone conversation. Like, you've got to get out of your comfort zone.
Here's how I use dreams, Frank, is if, everybody says, I'm sure if 100% of the room would raise their hand when I ask this question. How many times you've been told, I'm not buying a house right now, I'm not in the market? We've all been told that, right? Well, you first say in the script I use is, look, I totally understand. You just told me you're not in the market. I understand that. And I'm sure you have a goal. Like, would you and your husband like to own an investment property one day? Is that a dream of yours? And that's how I kind of get into like, what around real estate, what are your dreams? Like, do you want a bigger home one day? But right now, financially it's not in the cards, but down the road, it's a dream. Get him to talk about that, because then you can ask him what's in the way of doing it now.
Yep.
And like that, the other thing I always think about is the wood stove that I told you last night.
Yeah, that was a really good. Say that again. That was really good.
So your database, your phone, the gal, is it Summer that was talking about her phone, or Samantha? Samantha, you're talking about your phone. That's your database, but really getting it into a CRM that's going to allow you to expand on your database and touch them in a new way. Your database, whether it's a Facebook lead or your sphere of influence or whatever it is, it doesn't matter where the lead came from, an open house lead, put it in your database. And your database is like a wood stove, and you don't smack a wood stove on the side and say, give me heat. That would be kind of silly. You have to start out by taking a little bit of kindlings, a little bit of newspaper, and you build a very small fire. And if you put too many big branches or logs on it, you're going to smother that fire. And you have to, gently bring that fire up to where it's big enough that you can put a big log on it. And then eventually the wood stove gives you heat. And that's the relationship. That is an analogy for the relationships in your business.
I thought I'd never heard that before when you told me that, and who you heard it from is, he's a legend. So I no doubt that, that was one of the best analogies I've heard. And so, like, the kindling that he's talking about, that's the Ford conversation. The Ford conversation gives you that kindling to start that, because what happens if you do it right, you take notes from the Ford conversation when you initially talk to somebody, you put the notes in your database. And then when the notification comes up to talk to that person again, you already have something to build on and something to go after. And then what happens is you don't need the Ford conversation anymore, because you're going to use the notes from before to continue on the conversation, because everybody's going to end up being different. Like, not everybody has kids, not everybody has dogs. Some people don't have jobs. Like, it's conversations will take on a life of its own. And then you'll start communicating with that person based on who they are. Because I'll give you an example. I tell you, call everybody first. Make a phone call first. In 2024, not everybody likes to make phone calls. Matter of fact, like, if you have teenagers, chances are their voicemail is not even set up. I have 3 kids. They have 3 cell phones. Not one of them has a voicemail set up. You cannot leave my children voicemail. They'll text you. And when they call you, they won't even actually call you. And this is super weird. Like, my kids will FaceTime me. I'm like, why are you FaceTiming me? I do not want to FaceTime. It's super weird. Have you experienced that?
They want something.
100% they want something. Like, and why are you calling me? Like, I got you a Christmas gift and you didn't get me nothing. Like, why are you FaceTiming right now? But they FaceTime you. But this is the thing, is that everybody communicates on their own terms. But you have to make that initial phone call and then figure out where they at. And then as the relationship moves forward, you can start communicating with them on their terms. Like, most people like text, right? Some people like FaceTime, some people like email, and you just have to figure that out. And once you figure that out, the relationship becomes a relationship. Because the kindling right here of the wood stove that Sean's talking about, that's what you're trying to spark a fire there. You're like with a little flint rock trying to start.
And the other thing, Frank, the other thing to remember is the time that you start to build the fire and the time that the fire is actually strong enough that you can put the log on it, according to the millionaire real estate agents, is probably 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
Like you won't saturate the minds of these people unless you touch them a minimum of 33 times. And not to call Samantha out, but with your using your phone the way you are, you're skipping this whole step.
It's actually not Samantha with the phone, it's Mitra. She's in the audience.
Oh, sorry.
But she's super smart. She sells a lot of houses here, and you know, like everything we're telling you, know.
I do, but I don't do that.
Right?
Yeah.
But you know what? You're not alone. A lot of us are like that. A lot of us know what we're like. We all should work out and eat right,
Right,
but we don't. Like, right?
Same thing, yeah.
Like you know, I won't even talk about my diet last night. But no. So Mitra's you know, super smart and she knows what she's
Thank
doing.
you, but I have a listing and I have my first open house this Sunday. So I'm hoping to meet new clients.
Wouldn't you like to sell it yourself? Wouldn't that be cool?
That's what I'm.
And what's the best way in probably trying to sell it yourself?
Believe it or not, I'm sending postcards to the neighborhood.
Yeah. Wouldn't,
Sometimes it works.
but if you talk to everybody in your phone that you knew, do you think that maybe they might know somebody?
You know, we had this in the market last year.
Uh-huh.
So there were a couple of interest clients.
Yeah.
They said, oh, they're gonna wait. So I contacted them and let them know that they're back to the market. And they said, yeah, I mean, they showed interest.
Yeah.
So let's see. Hopefully they're coming this Sunday.
One of the best conversations you can have with your database is you call your database and you said, hey, I just listed a property in Culver City. And, you know, I'm just curious if you know anybody that is interested in that area. You're not selling them, you're asking
Yeah, I
them.
know.
And so it gives them an opportunity to tell somebody else about you, and it shows them that you're still in real estate and that you're doing well. So it literally, if you were down here in their mind, it immediately brings you to the top. And it's
Right.
one of the best, and this is the part that I tell people, like real estate, the really, really important part of real estate is not sexy. It is not sexy to sit down for 3 or 4 hours a day and call everybody you know and have a whole bunch of conversations you really, really, really don't want to have, but you just have to talk to these people. That's not the sexy part. The sexy part is getting an offer on your property and then getting a commission check. But those are all super minute things that happen within the business. And the really, really big part is the conversations and the relationship building. So.
Thank you.
No, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thanks, Sean, for helping out with these conversations. Anybody else got any comments or questions or thoughts? Anybody else? All right, I don't want to beat this one to death, but I thought this was a really good one. So my recommendation is get the book, Eat That Frog. It will help you. I go back to certain books and I reread them, and that's one I've read in the past multiple times. The next book that I'm going to try to do with you for Monday is going to be Who Moved My Cheese. I think like that should be part of a handbook that's given to all real estate agents when they get their license. They get their license, they get that book. Because it is so apropos being in the market for 20 years. My cheese has been moved multiple times and I think it's being moved again right now. So I have to go find my cheese. Anything else for the good of the order before we play the last video? Anybody? Thoughts, concerns, questions? All right, we'll go. Let's play this last video. I like this last video.
If you go to the gym and you work out and you come back and you look in the mirror, you will see nothing. And if you go to the gym the next day and you come back and you look in the mirror, you will see nothing. So clearly there's no results, can't be measured, it must not be effective. So we quit. Or if you fundamentally believe that this is the right course of action and you stick with it, you commit yourself to the regime, the exercise. But if you stick with it consistently, I'm not exactly sure what day, but I know you'll start getting into shape.
If you hit an oak tree 1,000 times, in 1,000 different spots, what's gonna happen? Absolutely nothing. But if you hit an oak tree 1,000 times in the exact same spot, you know what's gonna happen? You're gonna bring it down. You're going to do the impossible.
people put out goals, dreams, and aspirations and what they want to accomplish, but you very rarely hear people say what they're willing to sacrifice in order to make it happen. They'll tell you the goal, the dream, the aspiration. They'll tell you they want to be great, but they're not going to say, I'm going to stop going out on Friday night. They're not going to say, I'm going to sacrifice and I'm going to stay late.
I don't hang with people who can only get up when they got something to motivate them. That's not somebody I want to hang out with. I want to hang with somebody, I don't care what the circumstances, I don't care what the situation. You put it on your back and you like, let's go. Bro, you hear me? You gotta have that dog. I gotta clear my mind of some stuff, but when I get up there, I gotta do what I gotta do. Why? Because success is not a feeling, it's a mindset.
You have to commit to becoming better. You have to commit to being a person of action. You have to commit to being someone who doesn't just talk, but follows through. You have to plan ahead, and by planning ahead, you have to create a life in your head that is so fucking great that even if you fall short, you're gonna be better than everybody else.
Your problem is you start something, you stop it. You start something, you stop it. You feel good, you do it. You don't feel good, you quit. Stop doing stuff in January that you know you're not gonna do in March. I'm just saying whatever you do, be on time and be consistent. People who do stuff consistently and on time, they surpass people who talented and gifted. Sometimes it ain't about being the most talented. Sometimes it ain't about being the smartest. Sometimes it's about consistency. Consistency. Just keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it and never stop and never give up and never quit and keep doing it day after day, play after play, second after second.
You should work every day like somebody's working 24 hours a day to take it away from you. If you're not working to get better on a daily basis, if you're not pursuing the fulfillment of your own true potential, you are losing. You're either getting better or you're getting fucking passed by people who are. Every time you kick back and you think you're the greatest and you think you're the and you think you're the best at what you do, there is somebody that's 1 inch behind you that gets better than you.
If you do this morning, noon, and at night, it's gonna happen. The only way it doesn't happen is you're not focusing on it and you're not giving it energy. So even if you're better than me, it doesn't matter. If I'm putting energy out in the world is gonna respond because if I put energy on it, it ain't no way it's not gonna happen. The only way I'm not going to be the best is if I'm not out there. You're acting like doing well is an option. That's not an option. Show up. That means I come every single time on time. It means every time I come, I put in 120% or I don't come. Why? Because I'm trying to be the best. Every single day you wake up, if you're going to have energy, if you're going to have drive, every day you wake up, you got to start with that vision. People look at those of us who are successful like we superhuman. We're not. We're normal people like you. The only difference is we wake up with clarity. We wake up knowing exactly what we want. We wake up knowing exactly what our purpose is. When you understand what you're after, when you know what your outcomes are, when you know what you desire, you wake up every single morning and you go after it. And if you're not willing to do it every single day, you're not going to beat the man that's doing it every single day. I'm not the best, but they have not outworked me. I'm not the best. I'm a beast. The real beast is when their legs give out. The real beast when they tired. The real beast find a way to pull something out when nobody else ain't got nothing.
Awesome. Thank you guys for coming. Let me know if you guys have any questions, but I hope everybody has a great weekend and I will see you guys on Monday.
Thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.